Hello and welcome to our fourth and final webinar for our Parent Empowerment Speaker Series. If you missed any of the previous webinars, be sure to go to mediasafety.org to view and share the recordings. This webinar is hosted by End Exploitation Montana, and my name is Chelsea Winterholler. I'm Director of Operations at End Exploitation Montana, and I'm your host. We are so grateful to our sponsors for this event. We want to specifically thank our champion sponsors, Billings Public School, St. Vincent Healthcare, Brewer Dental Center, Billings Clinic, Rimrock Pediatric Dentistry, and Yellowstone Bank. As you all know, research shows that parents are the most important protective factor in the safety of their children. And we want to strengthen and empower each of you here today. So our goal today is to empower parents in making a positive difference in our youth. Today, we get to hear from Brittany Homer about protecting children from online exploitation. Brittany has a master's degree in family and human development, is a certified family life educator, and is a creator and host of the podcast, Raising Today's Kids, where she shares her deep belief in the power of parents. Brittany is co-founder and executive director of End Exploitation Montana, co-founder and co-creator of Stand Week, a middle school media safety program, and co-creator of the video Media Safety for Parents. Brittany has also served as a court-appointed special advocate, sexual assault advocate, and is a participating member of the Safeguard Alliance, which is a task force of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Brittany and her husband feel so blessed to have 4 children who inspire her to fight to protect all children. Thank you so much for joining us, Brittany. We are so excited to hear from you and gain knowledge from you. So I will just go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. I am so happy to be here and to share with you all today. So parents, as we've said over and over again, parents are the most important protective factor for their kids, but digital parenting does not come with a handbook, and it is hard. I am so grateful for technology, but I often feel like I am running to catch up with it and keep my kids safe. So I'm really excited to talk with you all about some things that I've learned today. So let me get my screen shared. So today I'm going to share with you a variety of tools that you can apply with a variety of ages. So some things that I share will be more appropriate for younger kids and some for older kids. And I will leave it to you to decide on a case-by-case basis what is best for the ages of your children. When I got started in this field years ago, I was completely focused on human trafficking and a desire to rid the world of that horror. But in order to do that, I found that I needed to step back and address the vulnerabilities that technology creates or accentuates in the lives of our youth. So consider these examples of how media can make youth vulnerable to exploitation. Sharing personal thoughts and feelings publicly on social media can lead to unhealthy emotional intimacy with strangers. Predators love it when youth post things like, "I am worthless," or "I hate my mom," because they see that as an opportunity to step in and begin grooming by comforting them with words like, "You're so beautiful," or "She just doesn't understand you." Next, cyberbullying can lead to feelings of isolation and a willingness to engage in unhealthy relationships where those who are bullied feel acceptance. Because let's face it, like other presenters in this series have talked about, humans are wired for connection. And if they don't find it in healthy relationships, they will look for it in unhealthy ones. Next, youth get caught up in the trap of constantly checking for likes and comments and messages. And that leads to a reliance on others for validation and self-confidence. So when a young person is convinced that sending a nude will impress someone, they might lower their standards to be noticed, and while at the same time opening the door to be exploited. One of the ways screens impact our brains is by initiating the release of a feel-good chemical called dopamine. And every time youth get a like or a comment or a message or a share or anything like that, dopamine is released. And dopamine is the same drug that same chemical that drugs like meth and cocaine release. And it's designed to stimulate our brains and can lead to cravings and even behavioral addictions. And my last example, pornography, it used to be found only in magazines or adult bookstores, but now constant and even live streamed violent pornography is available in the palms of our kids' hands. And according to one mind-blowing statistic, 27% of all video content online is pornographic. Some studies say that the average age of first exposure is 8, some say 11. Either way, both are way too young. And according to Dana Toole, the Children's Justice Bureau chief for the Montana Department of Justice, exposure to pornography can put a child at higher risk for being exploited as it erodes appropriate boundaries about safety, health, and touch. And in addition to what she says about that, in a twisted way, exposure to pornography also puts a child at higher risk for exploiting others. So tragically, we are seeing rising rates of child-on-child harmful sexual behavior. These are kids who are victimized by the porn industry, and then because their brains are designed to model what they see, they go on to victimize others. So kids are targeted by the porn industry, sometimes by accidental exposure from misspelled words and things like that. But also many of them are exposed because they become curious and go to their most trusted source of information, which sometimes happens to be Google. And sociologist Dr. Galdine said, when young boys, and I would add girls as well, when they put porn into Google, they get catapulted into a world of sexual violence, degradation, and dehumanization. And the boy who is aroused is also traumatized. And that is why we need to think of boys and girls as the victims of the porn industry. So it appears in order to protect our kids from traumatic exploitation or help them recover from it, we need to teach them to use media in healthy ways. We are fighting a war for our children. It is all hands on deck. We need to give it all we've got to protect them. So let's talk about what we can do. And the tools I'm going to give you today apply to any technology we're trying to protect our kids from: inappropriate content, compulsive gaming, predators, unhealthy social media, cyberbullying, threats to mental health, substance abuse, and more. So many of you are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow identified 5 needs that every human has and laid them out in a pyramid shape to represent how each builds upon another. So essentially what it says is if that bottom layer, the needs of food and water and sleep, et cetera, are not met, we will never be able to reach that top layer of self-actualization. So in other words, if someone is starving or freezing, they are not going to be concerned about their art project or their math test or developing skills that they would otherwise be excited about. Because of technology, our kids have the world at their fingertips. But in order to help them access that in ways that will allow them to reach their potential, we need to put in place the layers of a pyramid that I call the hierarchy of healthy technology needs. So in Maslow's pyramid, the bottom layer is basically physical things that keep a person alive: food, water, warmth, right? In our pyramid, it includes physical things that keep screens from overstepping their bounds in a child's life. So delaying access to smartphones, social media, limiting screen time, and physical boundaries like no phones in bedrooms, things like that. And as children get older, those things should be worked out in cooperation with them. Decide together what appropriate tech boundaries are so that they feel honored and respected and that their voice matters. The second layer in Maslow's pyramid is safety, like shelter from weather and other physical dangers. In this pyramid, it includes shelter from harmful content or behaviors in order to keep a child safe. So that includes strong relationships and healthy communication with parents and other trusted adults, parental controls on devices, filters, etc. Maslow's third layer is love and belonging, and that provide a healthy sense of human connection. So when those bottom layers are in place, technology can be used to connect with others in healthy ways, strengthening relationships with family and friends, and increasing that connection that every human needs. Next in Maslow's is esteem that comes from respecting and honoring oneself. So for us, esteem can be strengthened as youth make daily choices with technology that matches values and goals they have identified for themselves, and then holding on to those values and goals regardless of how others use technology. And those things can be an armor against cyberbullying, predators, addictive behaviors, anything. And then the top layer from Maslow is self-actualization, where you recognize and work toward your potential. And for us, that layer is recognizing and harnessing the power that you have to use technology to become your best self and do your part to make the world a better place. So that top layer, that's where we want to be and where we want to help our kids make it to as well. So let's talk specifics about how to do that. So a little more about layer one. Layer one, again, is that physical boundaries, delayed access, kind of like a gate. So I want to share with you this resource called Better Screen Time. I know the founder, she's amazing, and she has your kids' best interests at heart. So they have these resources, these fantastic resources for helping parents know when their children are ready for a smartphone. One of their resources is this self-evaluation for teens, and invites them to assess their own readiness by asking themselves questions like these. Do I complete my homework without being asked? Do I get up and get ready for school on my own? Do I have good personal hygiene? Am I responsible with my belongings? And if they can answer almost always in these categories, and there are others as well, but if they can answer almost always, that's a good sign that they are ready for the responsibilities that a smart device brings. Okay. There's also, when you're giving a child a smart device for the first time, there are several that are available for age appropriately for younger ages. So look into Gab Wireless, Trumi Wireless, Gizmo watches. These are devices that might be a good stepping stone before allowing your kids to have a full-blown iPhone or Android. They don't allow unsafe apps or web browsing with the potential for those accompanying tech harms. Okay, another thing that we can do in this second layer is to keep screens out of bedrooms, bathrooms, or from behind any closed doors, especially at night. So if you listen to Amy Rust at our webinar on the first Tuesday of this month, you heard her say that nighttime is often when teens they open up and are willing to share more with their parents. And that is an awesome opportunity for parents to connect. But unfortunately, this openness or letting down their guard can be turned toward unhealthy avenues online when kids do or say or view things they wouldn't otherwise. So setting up a charging station outside of their bedrooms is a really good idea. Buy them an alarm clock so that they don't use that old "my phone is my alarm" excuse. It's just keeping them out of bedrooms. It's a very concrete way to help kids stay safe. Okay, layer two is the filters and the parental controls for when they are using devices. And Protect Young Eyes was founded by a man named Chris McKenna. And he said this quote that I'm going to share with you that I just thought was really telling. It says, "I know it's tough being a parent today, but it's even harder being a kid. Sometimes I can't even sleep at night when I think about how tough it is to grow up today. How many of you would be in prison right now if Snapchat was around when you were a kid?" Seriously. And I just think about that and I think our lives weren't documented every step of the way when we were kids. And so it is hard for our children. They are living in a different world with so many more pressures. So I personally cannot begin to tell you all of the possible ways to protect all of your possible devices. So thankfully, Protect Young Eyes is one of those resources that has done the work for us. If you go to protectyoungeyes.com, click on parental controls, and then look through their list of devices, you will find exactly how to set up the parental controls for yours. One thing that they recommend above all else is a safe wireless router. So your router is what connects your Wi-Fi to every device in your home. So it can be a one-stop shop for protecting all of that Wi-Fi. And of course, it doesn't work for data. So make sure you get parental controls on each individual device as well, using Protect Young Eyes free support that they offer. Protect Young Eyes also has reviews for the most popular apps that can help you decide whether those apps are appropriate for your kids. Because there's no third-party rating system for apps right now, any developer can say, my app is appropriate for 4-year-olds, and there's no oversight for that. So we need help, right? Protect Young Eyes will tell you which apps are not what they appear to be. This is another great option for supporting your safety measures, the Parenting in a Tech World Facebook group. So this is where other concerned parents gather to ask each other questions, to share experiences, and just to support each other with specific parenting and tech needs. So you could go on there and say, I can't decide whether to give my daughter such and such app or not. Does anyone know anything about that? And you'll get all kinds of helpful input. Okay, another thing that we can do in this second layer that's really important is to talk to your children about sexuality regularly. It's a huge protection for you to be the primary resource for them regarding healthy sex education. So when kids go to Google to learn about sex, they may not only be traumatized, but they will also receive highly inaccurate and even dangerous education about a vital part of what makes them human. It is never too early to start teaching kids about healthy sexuality. So as infants, you can teach them correct names for their body parts. And not only does that help them see there is nothing to be ashamed of in regards to their body, but it also helps them communicate about healthy touch. So I know of a child who was trying to communicate to her parents about her sexual victimization, but she used these innocuous terms that gave her parents no cause for alarm. And so it took longer for her to receive the support that she needed. Another thing we can do is teach toddlers about safe touch. When is it appropriate for anyone to touch or look at their private parts? And those are things like health purposes and cleanliness purposes that, as they grow older, they won't need help with the cleaning and those things. But these are things that it's important to help toddlers recognize that they have power over. When kids ask questions, answer them clearly and honestly. If they ask where babies come from, teach them those things respectfully. Let their questions guide your conversation, and they can show you what they're ready for. If they don't ask questions, take initiative and find opportunities to bring it up in natural ways. You can say things like, "Isn't it amazing that she can grow a baby inside her body?" Or you could say, "Men and women both have seeds that can come together to create another human. Isn't that cool?" And take opportunities to talk about how those seeds come together and when it is appropriate to engage in those kinds of behaviors. Use your values and help your children develop theirs. When you see an ad with a woman wearing little to no clothing, talk again about when it is appropriate to look at someone's private parts. Talk about how the human body is nothing to be ashamed of, but to be kept private and personal and used in a way that shows respect and dignity for that each person deserves. Research has shown that youth want their parents to talk to them about these things. As they get older, they may try to convince you otherwise, but they really do want and need the moral clarity that you can give them. They need you to be a safe space for these subjects. Otherwise, they will find information elsewhere that may not be accurate. Some people are afraid to talk to their kids about porn, and they worry that talking about it will make kids curious. But by not teaching kids about online dangers, it's like sending them into the desert without teaching them about sunscreen. Smart devices are the most dangerous place a child can go, and we need to give them tools and education that will protect them there. Ignorance is not bliss. So another thing we need to do is keep healthy, open communication with kids about other subjects as well, so they will feel safe being vulnerable with you. So White Ribbon Week is an elementary digital citizenship program that I love. And there's this one small but power-packed piece of that program that includes some questions that give parents the opportunity to assess whether they are, quote unquote, trusted adults. So here's some of the things that they ask. When dealing with tough subjects with your child, do I get embarrassed or become uncomfortable? Do I yell or blame my child, saying things like, "This is your fault"? Do I punish or threaten, saying, "You're never having a phone again"? Do I shame or humiliate them, telling them they're stupid or "you're a bad child"? If so, if we do these things, our children may not want to share with us, and we all make mistakes, but trusted adults do the following. And these are some things that we can all work toward being or using in our communication with our kids. So thank your child for talking to you. Remain calm and talk respectfully. Listen and respond with interest to what they share. Praise them, reassure them, and show them love. Again, we all have moments of anger or frustration, but we can all become a trusted adult as we work on these things with our kids. Okay, layer number 3 is about love and belonging. When all the boundaries, filters, healthy parent communication, and other safety measures are in place, the internet and even social media can become a wonderful place to build and strengthen healthy connections with people, not to replace personal interaction with eye contact and physical touch and important social cues, but it has its place. So it is a great way to stay in touch with old friends, long distance family members, as you all know. For adults, to meet and get to know people from different backgrounds or from similar backgrounds and interests. I'm sure that I know I do, and I'm sure many of you do know amazing couples who met online, right? So it can be a great way to socialize with others. I even once had a man in China reach out to me through my podcast and asking for some parenting advice, which was totally unexpected. And who would have thought, right? But these days, teens, they often don't share phone numbers. They share social media usernames. So that's how they connect for everything from helping each other with homework to dating and other things. So here's some things that are important when helping our kids have healthy online relationships. We need to be part of that. We, as kids make social connections online, we need to participate in that to an extent with them. So meet them where they're at. If they rely on Snapchat to connect with others, be one of the people who's on there with them. Follow them or be their friend on social media, not to monitor or control them necessarily, but to show interest in them and participate in their lives. So check in with them about their lives online often. Sit and scroll through their social media feed with them if they will let you. That's not the opportunity to correct them, although there is a time and a place for that. That's a good opportunity to step into their shoes, to connect with them and see what life is like for them. And it might also be a good time to harness the power of questions. So questions are powerful, and thoughtful questions have the power to connect people with each other. They can help kids feel seen. So training ourselves to be thoughtfully and compassionately curious is a gift that we can give our kids. You might ask them things like, what do you love about TikTok? Or what's the best part about social media? Or who is a successful person that you admire, and how do you think they use technology in a way that led to their success? You might also ask them things like, what bothers you about technology? And if you could change anything, what would you change? Other ways that questions can be powerful are helping our kids deal with difficult emotions. So if your child is feeling an intense emotion and you ask them a question and they can verbalize the answer, just talking about it will move it from the amygdala, this fight or flight part of the brain, to the prefrontal cortex. And that's where they can reason and critically think about what's going on and strategize how to deal with it. That is huge. And obviously, this is not the time to interrogate. In order to get them to open up instead of shut down, consider, what is the purpose of your question? To get a confession, or to understand the underlying issues and why they're feeling what they're feeling or doing what they're doing. So we're not leading them or trying to get them to give a certain answer, because they will see right through that. We want to know what they really think, feel, and experience. So in a non-emotional moment, think about the difference between these questions. Have you been looking at porn? Versus, when was the last time you were exposed to pornography? One might lead a child to put up a barrier and feel shame, and the other recognizes that everyone is vulnerable to being exposed to harmful content online, and it could lead, asking a question that way could lead to increased connection. Another thing to remember is that our kids are subject matter experts about growing up in a digital world. So phrase questions the way that you would ask anyone in their field of expertise. Who knows better than they do what it's like to walk in their shoes? Another thing to think about is to realize that algorithms of social media are like magic tricks. So when was the last time you were baffled at a magician's sleight of hand? Think about that for a second. And when our kids get manipulated by algorithms or coerced by the slot machine of big tech, give them grace in a judgment-free environment and help them recognize what's happening. Ask them things like, how do you think TikTok knows what videos you might want to watch? Or what do you think Snapchat might do to get you to open it more often? These are things that can help them, ways that we can help them see things that they didn't previously see and give them some clarity. So here are a summary of some of those questions that I mentioned. Okay. And that leads us to the next layer, which is esteem, because helping youth recognize the power of questions will guide them to asking their own questions and assessing how tech is impacting their lives and what, if any, changes they would like to make. So esteem and confidence and self-respect will be built as youth make daily choices with technology that match their goals and values. It's like installing an internal filter for them. Okay, so let's talk about values and the power they have in our kids' lives. So Kelly McGonigal is a psychologist who wrote the book, The Upside of Stress. And in it, she says this: writing about personal values makes people more powerful, in control, proud, and strong. It also makes them feel more loving, connected, and empathetic toward others. It increases pain tolerance, enhances self-control, and reduces unhelpful ruminations after a stressful experience. In the long term, writing about values has been shown to boost GPAs, reduce doctor visits, improve mental health. It helps people persevere in the face of discrimination and reduces self-handicapping. This blows my mind, all of the ways that writing about values can benefit us. All of those come from identifying values, writing about them. And then she said also, in many cases, these benefits that she talks about are a result of a one-time mindset intervention. People who wrote about their values once for 10 minutes showed benefits months or even years later. So just a quick important thing about values is that we need to help recognize that values are things that that are within their own control. So it's about recognizing what matters to us, to them, and using that to fuel their own choices, not anyone else's. They can't control what others value, only what they value. And it could be things like how they prioritize their family, regardless of their family members' choices, how they interact with or exercise their faith, how they practice honesty or respect, how they live with courage, the kind of friend they are, their pursuit of adventure, how they treat others with equality, their attitude of gratitude, how they pursue personal happiness, how they embrace their freedom and live with integrity, and lots more. Again, values are not things we're trying to change in other people. We're using them to guide our own choices and be true to ourselves. So we can ask ourselves questions like, if I click on this, am I practicing honesty? Or if I post this, am I putting my family first? Okay, so now let's talk about the power and the role of goals, why they're so powerful, and then some keys for successful goal setting. So goals give us a sense of direction. It's like going on a road trip or going on a hike. Knowing where we are headed helps us know which road or a trail to take to get there. Goals give us a clear focus for making decisions along the way. They help us filter things out of our lives that aren't helping us get to where we want to go. They also give us a sense of control as we work towards specific things that we're seeking to accomplish. They give us motivation to continue through difficult and mundane days. They give us a sense of personal satisfaction when we see the progress that we're making. We look back and see how far we've come. They give us a sense of purpose and help us get out of bed every day. Goals are powerful, and researchers have seen links between goals and higher motivation, self-esteem, self-confidence, and autonomy. And researchers have also seen that goal setting literally changes the structure of the brain in a good way. So Jeffrey James, in analyzing that research, said the amygdala and the frontal lobe work together to keep you focused and moving towards situations and behaviors that lead to the achievement of that goal, while simultaneously causing you to ignore and avoid situations and behaviors that don't. So that is huge. Goals are so powerful. So here are what I consider the 3 essential steps for goal setting. Choose one or more short-term goal, have it be something you can accomplish in 1 week, but it should also be working toward a longer-term goal. Start by asking yourself, what is something specific and measurable that I can do with technology this week that aligns with my goals and values? And next, write your goal down. So display it somewhere you can view it often throughout the week. Hang it on a bathroom mirror, on the door of your bedroom. Students can hang it in their lockers, wherever. Then step number 3, find an accountability partner, someone who can check in with you at the end of each week and let them know whether you accomplished your goals, and someone who will celebrate with you and celebrate your successes and also encourage your continued progress. For your kids, that could be a family member, teacher, friend, counselor, church leader, anybody that's a trusted person in their lives. Okay, so I'll talk about some sample goals in a minute and how to help your kids set those. But first, let's talk about how values and goals can work together to help you make choices that lead to our 5th and final layer of our healthy technology pyramid. Okay, so Viktor Frankl, he was an Austrian neurologist and Holocaust survivor who spent his career helping people understand the importance of finding meaning in life. He clearly understood and taught the power of values and goals and how they come together in our choices. So he said this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. And it's in that space that all of us have a choice to make. And sometimes that space is a split second, but we have a choice to make. And whenever we stop and recognize what we're doing, practicing self-awareness, before making a conscious choice, that's when we're in that space and we have a chance to engage the prefrontal cortex that allows us to be the master of technology and not its slave. So we've all said or done things that we regret. And if those things happen to be recorded and distributed on the internet, it can be devastating. So taking a moment before acting can save us and our kids from untold grief. So think about the girl who spontaneously sent her boyfriend a nude picture. And after they broke up, he shared the picture with his friends, who then distributed it even further. And now she is haunted by that image and would give anything to take it back. This is the kind of thing that happens all the time without taking a minute to stop and evaluate before we choose a response. Okay, so this graphic illustrates that stimulus, the response, and the space in between. And for younger kids, parents are the ones who would engage in this exercise with or for their kids. For older kids, they can learn to master their own use of technology, and so you can teach them how to do this on their own. So when the stimulus occurs, and that's whatever it is that's motivating you to use technology, before you click, swipe, post, play, or search, pause for just a sec. And SEC stands for stop, evaluate, and choose. So stopping is a good time to take a deep breath, to connect your physical self with your mental self. And it's also a good time to engage your senses. Ask yourself, what do I see, hear, touch, taste, or smell? And doing that will help you become really present and intentional with your choices. Next is evaluate the choice that you're about to make. Ask yourself, does what I'm about to do with technology match my goals? Does it match my values? This is where the way goals change our brain structure comes in really handy, because that can help us remember and actually apply this. So what is your goal with each moment of screen time? Why do you get on that app, that video game? Why are you checking your notifications? What are you looking for? Does it reinforce or undermine your values of kindness or integrity, or whatever your values are? Are you getting online to avoid homework because you feel stressed or depressed, or because you're feeling a craving for something that might be an addiction? Are you getting on to learn something, or to talk to a friend, or for entertainment? So if our kids can answer the purpose of what they're using technology for, they will be turning on their prefrontal cortex, using the power of their mind before they choose a response. So if what you are about to do with technology does match your goals and values, choose to continue. If it does not, make a different choice that does match your goals and values. It's up to you. So we're trying to help our kids be intentional about screen use, to set personal boundaries, and to take ownership of their screen use. And in all of this, it is so important that we as parents lead by example. So I'm going to walk through this PDF, and it's something that I will have on our website along with the recording to this video. So this is a document that can help our kids navigate those upper layers of the healthy technology pyramid in one easy to follow format. So let's walk through how to use it so you can teach your kids. And in order to not scare them off, make sure they know there's nothing on this document that tells them what they should think or feel or do. It guides them to figure out how to make their own best versions of themselves. So it shows them the power they have to create an internal filter and master their own use of technology, and give them space as they try to figure these things out. So starting at the top, let me show you how this might look like for me. So starting with number 1, questions. I would ask myself, what do I love about technology, and what bothers me about technology? I love technology because it gives me a chance to connect with people I love. It bothers me when technology interferes with important relationships. Okay, so step 2, write down at least one personal value that has significant meaning for you. So for me, a significant value is gratitude. And something, and now moving on to number 3, what is something specific and measurable that I can do with technology this week that aligns with my values? I can choose to send 7 thank you messages this week to people. So I'm going to, step B says, write and display your goal where you'll see it often. So I'm going to write it and set it up as the background of my phone. So every time I open my phone, I will see the reminder for this goal that I've set for myself. C says, choose someone awesome to share it with and report back to. So I'm going to choose my husband. I'm going to tell him, hey, I'm going to send 7 thank you messages this week. On Sunday, can I tell you how it went? And he's going to say, of course. And so then comes just a sec. And this is where the stimulus happens, and we have a chance to choose or have this space before we choose a response. So let's say on Wednesday morning, I'm dropping my son off at school, and another driver cuts me off and almost crashes into me. So I feel a desire to post on social media about crazy drivers, but I can take just a sec and ask myself, Does this match my goals and values? And personally, posting a complaint doesn't feel grateful. So I would say, no, that's not me. Never mind. I'm not going to do that. But now is a great time. And this is a good reminder for me to send a quick thank you note to my son's school librarian, because she patiently waited for him to return his late library books this week. So at the bottom, it says, how do you feel? What worked or didn't work? I would say, I feel a sense of peace and I feel increased gratitude. So my value has strengthened. Okay, here's an example for a teenage girl. Let's say she loves technology because she can talk to her friends. It bothers her when they're all on their phones all the time when she's with them. For number 2, her values, she says she values integrity. And so for number 3, she decides she's going to set a goal to only check social media after she has done her homework every day this week. So she writes it with a dry erase marker on her bedroom mirror. She tells her friend about her goal and asks her if she'll celebrate with her when she accomplishes it. Now comes the stimulus, where she takes just a sec before choosing a response. So on Thursday, she comes home from school super overwhelmed. She forgot about a math test the next day. She feels like it's pointless to study because she'll never be ready anyway. So she goes to pull out her phone and start scrolling through social media. And then remembers her goal. So grudgingly, she puts her phone down, she gets out her math books, and she starts looking at her notes, and she works on that for about 10 minutes, but then she gives up. She's frustrated. She picks up her phone again and checks social media. So at the end of the week, her friend asks her how her goal went. She realizes in that moment that she could have done better, and she sets a similar goal for the next week. And when she finally does reach her goal, however long that takes her friend rewards her. Maybe she sends her a congratulations GIF or something that would be super appropriate. So she is on a path toward becoming a master of technology and reaching that top layer of the pyramid, the self-actualization. So individuals who are in that top layer recognize the power they have to develop any skill, gain any knowledge, or make any difference in the world through their use of technology. The world truly becomes their oyster. So, in conclusion, this presentation is pretty packed with information and it might feel overwhelming. It doesn't need to be though. So I want to encourage you and give you a sense of confidence by encouraging you to just choose 2 simple things to do. So first, look at the healthy technology pyramid and identify where your child is on that hierarchy. Okay, just figure out where they're at and where they might need some improvement. And step 2, just choose one thing that you will do this week to strengthen the layer that they're on or work toward the next layer. Maybe you'll go to Protect Young Eyes to identify a router that you want to use for your home. Maybe you'll take a power nap so that you'll be present when your teen wants to talk your ear off late at night. Maybe you will teach your child anatomically correct names for his or her body parts. Maybe you'll go back and watch Amy Rest's webinar so you'll be empowered to strengthen your relationship with your teen, since that is an essential part of every layer of our pyramid. Maybe you will walk through the Mastering Technology worksheet that I just gave you examples for so that you can identify where you are and then prepare to help your team do the same. So no matter what step you choose, every effort you make will keep your child safer. Never minimize your efforts and the power that you have to influence your child for good. You are exactly who they need to help them navigate this challenging digital world. I believe in you. And that's all. Thank you.
Awesome. I love that. I believe in you. Sometimes that's all we need. It's just someone to help us out and believe in us. Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah.
I loved hearing the facts of what makes youth vulnerable was so eye-opening to me. And then having you share that pyramid of healthy technology was just so awesome. I felt like it was so clear, starting at boundaries and getting to the point where both us and our children can just be intentional and self-aware. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We do have a couple of questions. The first is, I have a 14-year-old teenager. He literally says nothing and he is always on his phone. How can I build this comfortable bond with him to get him to start opening up and answering questions?
Oh, that is such a good question. My first thought is actually to go back and watch Amy Rust's webinar on building relationships with our teens and loving those teen years. She talked about very simple things like just acknowledging them when they walk into the room. Um, I love the thought of, do your eyes light up when your child walks into the room? And how, if they do, how different that feels for them to know that they are noticed and they're loved. And maybe they don't look at you and even notice that your eyes are lighting up. There are little things that you can do. And she also said something about creating time for our kids, both spontaneous time and intentional time, like vacations and maybe nights out as a family. You might start with little things like like the boundaries of saying, let's have family dinner together every day, and let's not bring our phones to the table. Let's see if we can go 10 minutes without checking our phones, or whatever it is. There are lots of little ways that you can start to build that relationship. And maybe it's other things. Maybe it's things that don't require in-person interaction. Maybe it's writing a note to your child and telling them what they mean to you, or sending them a text, like being part of that phone. They're carrying their phone around, they're seeing their messages coming through, and being part of that with them. Sometimes asking questions is hard to do. Maybe sometimes teens don't like to ask questions with eye contact. Sometimes that makes them uncomfortable. And so maybe while you're driving, ask a question while they're sitting next to you, or writing down a question and texting them a question saying, asking whatever it is that you need to ask.
I love that. Those were awesome tips. Thank you. This is a pretty simple question, I guess, but I think it's an important one to ask you. At what age should you bring up the word pornography?
Ooh, that's a great question as well. Um, and I would say case by case is what I would say. I think it depends on your child. So, like I kind of mentioned, kids are exposed earlier than we think they are. And there's actually a really great book that I would highly, highly recommend. And I didn't mention this earlier, but there's a book called by Kristen Jensen. And it teaches you how to, it's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And she actually has two versions of it, one for like really little kids, like preschoolers, and one for a little bit older kids. And it talks about it defines the word pornography in an age appropriate way and teaches kids exactly what it is and why they need to steer clear of it, and then what to do if they see it, to turn it off, talk to a trusted adult, turn to something active, steps like that that will help them know how to respond when they see that. I would say, the word is important to recognize and know what that means, but the meaning is even more important to help them understand, like, why we don't look at people when they're naked, like why that's not okay, why that's unhealthy for us. And so then bring the word up when it feels like, with the books, or when it feels like your child's ready for it.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question. And if your question does not get answered, remember that you can fill up a follow-up survey that will be emailed to you, and we will respond to you with the answers to your questions. So the last question is, when is it too late? My son is addicted to his screen, and I feel like I failed him. He's 12 years old.
Oh, I feel for you. I feel for parents. I mean, again, parenting is so hard. And when our kids get caught up in things that we don't even know how to deal with, it is so challenging. I would start by taking a deep breath and realizing that you are an amazing parent, even though, maybe some guardrails weren't put in place earlier. It's not too late. There are always things that you can do. And maybe that starts with a conversation about, what do you, asking your child, what do you think is a good amount of time to spend on your phone? Or maybe it's a question like, what do you love about your phone? And again, this comes back to what Amy talked about in her webinar. Is she talked about, like, if your kid wants to play video games, sit down and play them with them. And it doesn't mean you have to enjoy it, but you're just getting into their world. Just get into their world. And so you can understand what it is that they're being drawn to, what it is that they love. And then you become a safe space for them to talk to about those things and to open up to. So there's really no wrong way to go about parenting, as long as you're doing it with love and with respect for your child. So the little things again.
Wonderful. I think that's all the time that we have for today, but Brittany, thank you so much. There were just so many wonderful tools. I can't wait to get your PDF of just a sec and to just really apply the things that you taught us here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes. This concludes our Parent Empowerment webinar for 2022. Our sincerest thanks to each of you for tuning in, not only to strengthen your homes and your families, but really to improve our community. Don't forget that if you go to mediasafety.org, all of these videos are posted. You can view them and you can share them. I want to thank the entire team at End Exploitation Montana for their hard work for months on end, making this speaker series a wonderful success. And thanks again to our champion sponsors, St. Vincent Healthcare Brewer Dental Center, Rimrock Pediatric Dentistry, Billings Public Schools, Billings Clinic, and Yellowstone Bank. We look forward to seeing you out and about in our community. Please reach out to us on our website if you have any questions at all. Thanks for coming.